Hey everybody, welcome back to Old School Lighting. My little personal diary here of a bunch of little knickknacks and museum pieces that I've accumulated over the years. And I figure I may as well do something with it. You know, since I got a little bit of spare time right now, I wanted to share it. So I've got another really cool one for you here. We're kind of on an HMI genealogy here if you watched the last episode. I've got another small HMI here, which is another rare bird, especially these days. This is the ARRI Pocket Par 125, a 125 watt HMI arc lamp. So much like the LTM Bonsai that I showed you in the last episode, this is also an arc lamp, but it's not a 200 watt. It's actually even smaller. It's a 125 watt HMI. Now these days, the type of output that you would get out of something this small is actually quite sufficient for a lot of applications because cameras are so light sensitive, and even in indoor settings you don't need a whole lot of light with current technology either. A lot of LEDs don't really have to be that bright in most situations. But back in the day when this thing was being made, which was like what, early 2000s, basically, and it was in that range, like late 90s, early 2000s, is when these things were being produced brand new by ARRI. A 125 watt HMI, people would look at it and be like, what am I going to do with that? There weren't a whole lot of applications for it because people were still shooting with 100 and 200 and 300 and 400 ISOs at the very most in a lot of situations. And so for ISOs on film stocks and video stocks like that, you would need a lot more light. So a 125 watt HMI didn't really do much unless you were doing something really, really specific. And ARRI actually came out with the Pocket Par 125 in response to another company, which we all know pretty well, and I used to work for them a long time ago too, called K5600 Lighting. Now K5600 at that time was killing it in the market. They had what they called the 200 watt Joker, and then later on the Joker-Bug. They had a 200 watt, a 400 watt, then later on they came out with an 800 watt and a 1600 watt, and then they came out with a lot of other stuff after that too. But the big ones at the time were the 200 watt Joker-Bug and the 400 watt Joker-Bug. Man, those things were flying out the door and people were using them all the time. And ARRI didn't have anything to really answer that call. So what they eventually came up with was this, the Pocket Par ARRI 125 watt. And look, to be honest with you, from a technical standpoint, this is actually a fantastic light. Personally, I always kind of liked it, but it was kind of another one of those situations where it was overly engineered. They had so many accessories, and just the way that everything kind of fit on and the focusing mechanism, it's almost as if they were trying to do too much into one package to really try to beat the competition, which was K56. But eventually, on this one at least, they never did. They sold a few units, yeah, for sure, but these kits were way more expensive. Too many knickknacks and little doodads and stuff like that. People never used them. Didn't really work out too well in the rental house market, and the freelancers that were buying this stuff stayed away from it mainly because of the price. For a 125 watt, it was an overkill. If memory serves me correctly, I think like one of these kits at the time was going to cost you something like $6,000 or even $7,000. That was a lot of dough for something this small. Anyway, let me fire this thing up. It's got a power supply, not magnetic, but electronic. And it's down here. Let me see if I can go ahead and get this going. And yeah, looks, there you go. So what was really cool about this is that, as you all know, it's going to take a few seconds for this thing to warm up. The Pocket Par had a lot of accessories. They had a lot of lenses. This is an example of a super wide lens. Right now, it's just being operated right now with just the bare spot. It had a little focusing mechanism here in the back. You would basically grab the back of the blue body here and you would spin it left and right. And it was a really snug kind of focus. You didn't get too much range out of it, but it worked pretty well. And then one of the additional selling points was not only could you focus it, which on most fixtures like this at the time you could not focus them, but you also had all these extra lenses. So you had super wide, you had wides and mediums. Here was an example of a Fresnel. You also had like kind of like a stippled spot filter. So if you wanted to use it as a spot, kind of clean it up, you would use this. You also had like these dichroic filters, which would actually convert the daylight back into like a 3200 tungsten, kind of like a warmer tone. So you had like filters like this. You had other stuff like you had barn doors, of course. Whoa, these are stuck. You had barn doors like you would for anything else. You also had Chimera speed rings for the use of soft boxes or lanterns and stuff like that. And this was always a little funky on the Pocket Par too. It had this ribbed system, so I'm not even going to do it, but you had to like kind of futz with it a little bit and just like kind of get it into these grooves and then tighten it down, and then it didn't really hold very well. You had like a little kind of like handle for kind of like a run and gun application. So if you kind of wanted to use it like a little sun gun, you would use this little guy, which was also included in the kit. And this is an example of the small power supply. This was the AC 120 volt power supply, so pretty lightweight, pretty small. They also had a DC ballast where it was about half the size of this thing, but you would plug in a 30 volt battery belt. And so if you wanted to run this thing on DC as a sun gun, you would use the DC ballast, which was a different ballast than this one. You would plug it into a big old fat battery belt, and you'd put it around your waist, which was really heavy, and then you could run around with this thing like a little sun gun. So that was the technology back in the late 90s and the early 2000s, guys. And then, oh yeah, then you had this little gizmo right here, which was kind of cool. You could put this onto the head. So you'd fasten this into the head, groove it in, lock it on, and then you could take the power supply and put it on top. So, you know, this was ARRI engineers trying to figure out all kinds of different ways to make it cool and special and convenient, to kind of just strip out the competition. But in the end, simplicity actually won, and the Joker-Bugs actually really reigned supreme for a very long time in this market. I'm trying to pop this little lens back on here. There we go. Because people really liked the price points, and they really liked the fact that the Jokers were really small, and it was pretty simple. They only had 4 lenses, a ballast, a head, and a cable, and a case, and that was it. That's all people really wanted. Let me go ahead and shoot this thing up against the wall too, so you get an idea. You could see just really nice quality beam spread, and this is typical of what you would see from ARRI. Again, you know, if you want to play with focusing, you'd see here, it's kind of hard to see, but you can kind of spot it in a little bit. And you do this and it kind of floods out, and then you could do it with different lenses. So it was a pretty cool light, and 125 watts. Again, you know, the go-to at the time was kind of like 200 watts, but and the 125s never really took off. But in recent years, I actually used a couple of these that I own that I also bought from a rental house locally here, a good friend of mine. And you know, he wanted to get rid of them because nobody was renting them anymore, but I wanted them because I'm crazy like that, and I put them in my set, and it actually worked out beautifully. So anyway, all right, so that does it for the ARRI Pocket Par 125. I know I'm talking a lot. I was showing some accessories. Sorry, guys, but there's a lot to say on these things. But I hope you enjoyed this video on this Pocket Par. This is a nostalgic piece. Would you not agree? I think you probably would. So anyway, let me wrap this one up, but I always got to tell you, make sure, guys, visit my website, thelafirm.com. You'll see all the info and links that you need in the description below. And don't forget to tell a friend. All right, tell a friend. Check this video out, pass it around, and visit my website if you need to buy anything along these lines. Lighting equipment, sound equipment, video equipment, anything else that has to do with production, and I get into a lot of other non-entertainment stuff too. So make sure you check it out, and if you need some quotes, check it out, thelafirm.com. Send me an email, and I want to see those comments below too on the ARRI Pocket Par 125. I want to hear it from you old schoolers. I know you've used these, and the Joker-Bugs too. I got to find a Joker-Bug, I'm sure I can, and then I'll do one of these videos. But until then, thanks a lot for watching this one, guys. I know I'm a blabbermouth, but I couldn't help myself. And there you go. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you on the next one.